Imagine a quiet, snowy night in Utah. It's March of 2022. The air is thin, the kind of cold that bites at your lungs, and the mountains surrounding the town are silent, like giant sleeping beasts. Inside a beautiful, multi-million-dollar home, a family is celebrating. Kouri Richins, a successful real estate agent and a mother of 3 young boys, has just closed a massive deal on a new mansion. To anyone looking through the window, this was the American dream. Kouri is happy. She's glowing. She's the image of a successful modern woman. To celebrate their success, she decides to make a special drink for her husband, Eric. A Moscow Mule. She mixes the vodka, the ginger beer, the lime. It's cold, it's refreshing. She carries it upstairs and brings it to him in bed as a gesture of love. They toast to their future, to their 3 beautiful boys, and to the empire they are building together. Eric takes a long sip, smiles at his wife, kisses her goodnight, and closes his eyes. A few hours later, at 3:22 a.m., the silence of that house is shattered. A 911 call comes in. Kouri is on the phone, her voice a jagged edge of panic, screaming that she just found her husband and he's cold to the touch. When the paramedics arrive, they find a scene of pure chaos. Kouri is on the floor, her hands on Eric's chest, performing CPR. Her face is a mask of pure, unadulterated grief. But Eric Richins, a healthy 39-year-old man who spent his days outdoors, a man in the absolute prime of his life, is dead. At first, the world believed her. Why wouldn't they? The community of rallied around her. They saw a young widow left with 3 little boys who would now grow up without a father. They saw a woman struggling to even breathe through the weight of her loss. And Kouri, she didn't just grieve in private. She took that pain and she did something that the public found heroic. 1 year after Eric died, she released a children's book. It was titled, "Are You With Me?" It was a beautifully illustrated guide for children on how to deal with the sudden death of a father. She went on local television, her eyes welling with tears, telling the cameras how Eric was an amazing husband and a wonderful father, and how this book was the only way she knew how to help her boys heal. She became more than a widow. She became the grief expert. But as we stand here in May of 2026, looking back at the final, soul-crushing days of her trial, the world is realizing that the book wasn't a tribute. It was a cold-blooded taunt. Because the grief expert didn't just study loss. She manufactured it. I want you to peel back the wallpaper of this perfect Utah life. Because in the months leading up to that night in March, Eric Richins wasn't a man living in bliss. He was a man living in a state of constant, quiet terror. He was starting to look at his wife not as a partner, but as a predator. Imagine the dinner table in that house just a few weeks before Eric died. It was Valentine's Day. A day for romance. Kouri made him a sandwich. Eric took 1 bite, and within seconds, his life nearly ended. His throat began to tighten. His skin broke out in angry, red hives. He couldn't draw air into his lungs. He had to grab his son's EpiPen and jab it into his own thigh just to keep his heart beating. He passed out for hours. When he finally woke up, he didn't call the police. He called his sister. And he told her something that sounds like a line from a horror movie. He said, "If anything happens to me, it's Kouri. She's trying to kill me." He knew. He felt the cold breath of his own fate. But he stayed. And this is the part that breaks your heart, he stayed because of the boys. He was a devoted father. He couldn't bear the thought of leaving his 3 sons alone with a woman he no longer recognized. He started documenting her behavior. He began talking to a divorce attorney in secret. He was trying to protect his assets, trying to build a wall around his life, not realizing that Kouri had already set the house on fire. You see, behind the scenes, Kouri's real estate business was a house of cards. She was drowning in millions of dollars of debt Eric had no idea existed. She was stealing money from his business accounts. She sent a photo of herself in a swimsuit to this lover while she was sitting in a lawyer's office, trying to sue Eric's family for his estate. She was planning a celebration before Eric was even in the ground. To her, Eric wasn't a human being anymore. He was a barrier to a lifestyle she felt she deserved. Think about the audacity. Think about the heart it takes to stand in front of a mirror, practicing your sad face for the cameras, knowing that you had already spent the money you earned by killing the father of your children. During the trial this month, a recording was played that silenced the entire courtroom. It was a jailhouse call Kouri made just a few weeks ago. In that call, there is no grief. There is no mention of Eric's memory. There is only a cold, hard focus on winning. She is heard instructing her mother and brother to get the story straight. She tells them to find people who will lie for her, to say that Eric was a closet addict. She is heard saying, I need to win. I need to get back to my life. She is still performing. She is still trying to write the script. She is an author, after all. She believes she can convince the world that the sky is green if she just writes it convincingly enough. But in May 2026, the jury stopped reading her fiction. They started reading her indictment. They looked at a woman who used her own children's trauma, the trauma she caused, as a marketing prop to sell books. As the jury prepares to deliver their verdict here in May 2026, we are left with a terrifying reality that haunts every household in America. We live in a world where you can buy a book about healing from the very person who caused the wound. We live in a world where the person signing the book is the same person who signed the death warrant. Kouri Richins thought he was safe in his own bed. He thought the Moscow Mule his wife brought him was a toast to their success, a moment of intimacy after a long day of work. He died believing in a person who never actually existed. He died in the arms of his own killer, surrounded by the photos of the children they shared. The next time you see someone who seems to have it all, the perfect home, the perfect career, the perfect smile, just remember the Moscow Mule. Remember the book, Are You With Me? And remember that grief isn't always what it seems. Sometimes, the tears are real, but the reason behind them is something far more sinister. Because sometimes, the most dangerous people aren't the ones who scream at us from the shadows. They are the ones who tuck us in at night, hand us a drink, and tell us they'll love us forever, all while they're waiting for us to stop breathing so they can start the next chapter of their own selfish story. The grief expert taught the world one thing, that evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes, it looks like a mother, an author, and a grieving widow. It looks like the woman next door. And that is the most terrifying mystery of all.